then you've got to sort of figure that also then tying to the circle of the deep and the 12 chancellors' houses and how they relate as a sequence to bring us into a precept of God. Now, I feel that the precepts of God, which are in a sense a revelation of some aspect of his character or essence or nature, are tied to our maturity, but we can have a precept of God which then changes our mind, the statutes and the laws and the ordinances in a cycle. And maybe we can have a precept of God which is designed in one of the 12 ages of man to come into the age that I'm now in maturity, to mature me to another age, revelation of precepts, if you like. And I think it's all about the revelation of who God is, which brings us revelation of who we are, and that maturity level, which I think is to do what the ages are about, rather than the church age, the kingdom age. That's not really what they're about. It's not that type of time scale, but a more of a maturity of identity, of sonship. And ultimately, we want to be fully mature, fully functioning in every level of sonship, fully seated in the realms of heaven to the highest level that we are called to occupy. So from that perspective, I think it's more revelation of God, which brings revelation of who we are, which brings about revelation of our authority and our position to administrate this level of maturity that I have, and not be operating outside of the maturity level and therefore doing things that I don't have the maturity to do. So there's wisdom needed within these contexts to say, I feel led into this area, but I don't feel I have the wisdom or the understanding or insight to enable me to fulfill this area. So I'm going to engage with the house of precepts, perhaps in the realms of the heaven and the circle of the deep, to see if there's a revelation of something within the precept of God, which will bring about a maturing of my understanding of who God is, and therefore my role within the kingdom in that area. So we can be proactive about it. We don't just have to be sitting waiting for something to cycle me, which, you know, happened in my life with the angels that were assigned to me and guarding my throne in the realms of heaven, did administrate the circle of the deep a number of times to cycle me around, to change, to bring me into a greater state of maturity. But then I learned that I can engage there if I feel I need something. And I remember when Father asked me to do some court cases in the Council of 70, I felt completely out of my depth and completely unaware of how to do it. And I went through a quite quick process of maturity in that area. And something of the precept of God regarding judgment, justice, grace, mercy revealed to me a whole dimension of how to administrate this court case for the Joshua generation, where before I had those encounters that brought about that understanding of God's precepts towards, judgment, justice, grace, mercy, that I would have been able to do. And I engaged the firestones, and I engaged things which brought about a great change in my understanding and experience of God at that level. Then I felt equipped to go in and do what he called me to do. So I think his self-awareness is important in knowing, well, where am I? And not just hoping for the best and plowing in. Because God may say, I want you to do this, and he knows you're not ready to do it. So therefore, there's going to be a process that makes you to become ready to do it. And I think it's always looking out for those cycles and embracing them and engaging them to facilitate that renewing of our mind and our deconstruction, if that's part of it, or just wisdom and insight and imparted, infused knowledge of the Father's heart sometimes can take place.